Alright, Fairness First video presentation, responding to a comment and such. And yeah, that's what we'll do. So, when it comes to repairing the economy in the long term, how can we work our way out of our national debt? So, the real thing isn't to try to work your way out of it, it's to figure out how to go to a restart in some sort of rational way. You can't fix the boat. So the boat we're in, the financing is so broken that I don't think there's any practical way to fix it. Most of the debt is actually rich people owing rich people money, and technically, most of the income taxes is paid by people who are very wealthy. So the system essentially has to take the money from the rich to pay the rich. But the problem is to do that, you have to end up with a whole bunch of inflation, and that'll kill all the people who saved money. So all the savers will be destroyed. All the people who were careful with their money will be wiped out. All the people with debt will enjoy the advantage. So all the people that have a big, huge credit card bill would be rewarded, and all the people who manage their resources carefully would be crucified, slaughtered. So the way is to just engineer a new restart, because the problem is you can never pay back the money because the rich have so many claims to money that you can never resolve all the claims. There's just, the claims are, for resources 500 years from now kind of thing. There's no way to resolve the claims because the claims are they're claims on resources you can't realize. So they're all kind of bankrupt. So I would argue that there won't be a way to right this ship. You just have to build a new boat while you're in the boat. So while we're in the boat that's sinking, we have to build a new mechanism that just basically says we're going to get rid of these extremes. We're not going to allow people to starve on the street, and we're not going to allow people to be billionaires. And somewhere in between that, we're going to give you a portion of life that has something to do with what you deserve. Now, if you have, $700,000 worth of debt, and $15 worth of hard assets, obviously, we can't reward that behavior and give you everything. So you're going to have to be in the, you're going to have to accept a moderate, maybe a slight lowering of your standard of living. But the idea would be is to retain some notion that people's standard of living, where they are, is where they deserve to be in some extent. And so most people, the objective would be to keep them in their relative positions. They just can't have relative positions that are extremely insane. You can be higher than somebody on the ladder, but you can't be 500 steps higher on the ladder kind of thing. So if we get rid of the grossest of the disproportions, then you can take the system and restart it from that position, based on what you can assess people have earned more than what people have on a piece of paper that says they are entitled to. Entitlement will be sort of nonsense. You're going to have to show that the entitlement is based on some sort of deserve. But I don't think there is any way to resolve it. Like, you can't, the amount of debt is so humongous, there's no way for you to finance paying off the debt and also finance taking care of senior citizens and doing all the other things government has to do. You can't pay for anything. You can't have a military and all this other stuff if you have to finance your old debt. So that just won't work. And a lot of the debt is very old debt. It's just been recycled and recycled and recycled. So they're gaining rent off renters who are renting. It's all a bunch of reselling. So you can sort of understand that the whole instrumentation is too many people taking too many profits. There's too many people being landlords and too few people being renters, however you want to describe it. Too many people taking a cut, reselling the same house. Okay, it's just, there's a word for that. When you rent an apartment and then you re-rent it to somebody else, that kind of thing. Anyway, I have watched your economic videos for years, so understand the basics of your economic series. I view Bitcoin, so that's a funny subject, and other cryptocurrencies to be an obstacle. Well, they're an obstacle because they don't understand what cash is supposed to be, which is dependable. Okay, there's no, You can't have a currency, okay, that increases in value, arbitrarily. It has to increase in value for a good reason, okay, not for no good reason. And obviously, it's not supposed to be an investment vehicle. You're not supposed to buy currency and get rich. You're supposed to buy currency to keep your value. So if you have a bunch of, potatoes in your barn, the idea is you can put your potatoes on the market and get their value, all right? And you have something that's durable value. You don't have value that's going to cut in half tomorrow. So nobody who wants to do business is going to want to own Bitcoin, because they know that at any moment in their use of this currency, the currency could turn into crap. And then now it's of no value. So they don't want something that moves around. They want something stable that they can rely on, that they're not going to be, you're not going to lose half your money for no good reason, arbitrarily, in the middle of a transaction. So Bitcoin will never replace cash because it doesn't have a mechanism built into it to stay stable. It's not locked to anything. Where the American dollar is locked in the sense that there's restrictions on its production. Okay, now those restrictions are starting to fall apart, and they are printing more and more cash, and that is dangerous, in terms of devaluing the cash. But clearly, that's all the big bankruptcies that ever took place in history. Germany, Venezuela, there's some other one. They happened because of printing cash, devaluing the currency. So it's not just inflation. It's inflation for a very specific reason. And it's a very specific cause of the, Japan. Now that's the other big one. It's because you printed currency. And if you print the currency, and you're basically devaluing the currency. And so the whole idea of a currency is to keep it stable and keep it locked to a value. Find something on Earth. Find 5 things on Earth. Gold, sheep, corn, dog collars, and microwave ovens. And then just tie your currency to their price. And then you have something that's durable and useful to people. But if you don't tie it to something, that is if your currency starts to devalue relative to that pile of stuff, then you automatically suspend reissuance of more currency. So you reduce the amount of currency in circulation. In a sense, you take in more taxes than you spend out to rebalance the currency. And if you don't have a mechanism like that, there's no mechanism like that in Bitcoin, then it's vulnerable to all kinds of fluctuations that just make it useless as a currency. Now, maybe people want to play with it as some kind of roller coaster to ride, but it'll never be a currency because it doesn't have the number one thing most responsible buyers want, which is they don't want their money to turn into shit in their pocket. They don't want to put the money in their pocket and then find out 5 hours later that half their money fell out of their pocket. All right, because people are going to feed this Bitcoin bubble. So again, it's a Bitcoin bubble that doesn't have anything to do with rational currency replacement. It just has to do with a fad, and pretending this has something to do with more efficient transfers. Now, everybody should be in favor of reducing the cost of transactions. That is, right now we have commercial companies that charge us to transfer our money from your pocket to my pocket. We have to pay some company 3% to transfer from my pocket to your pocket. Now, the government could set up a bank that would just be for this purpose of I put money in my pocket, so to speak, and I put my deposit in, you put your deposit in, and they do the transfers, and they charge us, 0.4 cents, because that's all it really is going to cost to do the transfer. So, you can have a system that isn't a system in the banking business, in the loan business, in some other business than the simple business of doing the transfer. So if they could turn this cryptocurrency into a real currency and that it would be stable, and you don't let people mine it, you don't let them make more of it, and you don't keep it restricted. You let it flow as it becomes less. As more people desire it, you allow more of it into the market, and as people become less desire it, then you have less of it in the market. So you keep the price of it stable. And if they invent that cryptocurrency, then they'll actually have something worth owning. But until then, none of them are worth owning. All right, because people are going to feed this Bitcoin blob rather than bring back actual work. So I don't know if it has anything to do with work. It just has to do with what we call a currency. And the whole point of a currency is to make transactions easy. So we don't have to actually transfer deeds or actually transfer, a gold statue or some other thing I might have that I want to hawk or, I want to borrow on. It's just getting rid of the idea of just transferring stuff. Instead, we can just transfer what we have as reliable wealth. We convert it into some common medium, and then we can just transfer the common medium. And then when we want to get out and just cash out and buy, a bed or a house or something, then we buy the real commodity, and we're out of the currency business. But I mean, it really shouldn't be a market for exploitation. It should be a market for utility. And until one of these people invents a currency that actually is for the purpose of utility and not for some gimmick to make money, without doing any work, it's just useless. So it's garbage. It has nothing to do with a more efficient modern currency. And it has everything to do with people trying to set up pyramid schemes to screw their neighbor. It's so simplistically and obviously not designed to replace currency. If you want to replace currency, you have to design it to replace currency. You can't design it otherwise. And the key thing for currency is stability. There's a dilemma of automation as well. So yes, the fact that, and the real dilemma is that the advantages, the efficiencies of automation are not being distributed evenly to the human population. So this is part of the inequity thing. The wealthy are extracting, hundreds of times more value out of the industry. So all the industries, the salaries of all the 50% of the lowest paid workers is essentially the salary of one CEO, that kind of thing. So the management is taking out 100 times more value out of the company than the workers are. And so, that's a problem that's been around a long time. And so it's not automation that's at fault. It's the fact that we don't have any system to distribute the advantages of automation without the rich taking all of them. So the rich have done very well on automation. Automation has made them richer. And the workers have done very bad in the sense that they've gotten no breaks. They don't get shorter work weeks, and they don't get all the things they should be getting as part of the advantage of our going to the future. Going to the better future should have made their lives easier too, and should have made our public infrastructure so much stronger rather than it just deteriorating, falling apart because the rich aren't investing in it. They're not civilizationalists. They're selfish individualists. And so they wish to make no investment in all of us having a better life. They just wish to make an investment in them having a better life. And clearly that attitude isn't going to work. It's not going to be good for human beings. It's not going to be good for animals. It's not going to be good for anything on this planet. So what would be the most practical way to fix our situation? Well, the most practical thing we can do is communicate the ideas and hope. Really, I'm not in the right place, am I? I didn't pay any attention. I was sliding into the dark. And hope that, people can be persuaded to be decent and to invest in the future and to recognize the future so much bigger than our own little individual life. And there's all these other lives that are depending on us to make the right decisions. And it's clear that every decision that's been made in the past 50 or 100 years have been decisions for short-term gain, exploitation of advantages based on age and all these different things. And it was none of it was designed to create a system that could be a boat that was going to be durable. They never waterproofed the boat. They never made it out of materials that, a fish can bang into it and knock a hole in it. It's cheap, flimsy, crappy boat that they've decided to sail to the new world in, to sail to the future. And it can't get anybody to the future. It's a piece of crap. And so the argument has to be made that if you want civilization, you have to pay for it. And the fact is, you can't have everything you want. You can't have every single flying carpet. You can't have every single advancement. You all can't have this special privileged life and think it's going to happen that way, because it won't. You have to invest in the reality of air to breathe and water to drink and all those things first, and then work your way up to a quality of life. And part of the argument has to be about what people's individual responsibilities are. I mean, the criminal costs us a huge amount of money. Criminals have to be known. Maybe it has to be told to criminals that that's your biggest crime against us, is the amount of money we have to spend on police forces and welfare checks for the widows, and all of the expenses that go with your crime. Your crime isn't really even just the crime. The crime is the amount of money we have to invest in making some effort to deter you. And so you really are obscenely thumbing your nose at civilization when you're a criminal. So maybe we gotta change this attitude that any behavior by a human being is forgivable, and that none of it should be, that there has to be some limit. And obvious things like 2-strike laws would make sense. 3 strikes, no, 2 strikes. You're done. Okay. 2 good trials and you failed at both of them. That's enough of a chance in life. We also have to realize that we can't keep just doing this stupid inheritance thing where we just give people money for doing nothing. All money is social blood. Every dollar is social blood. Everybody's blood is on it. Okay, all the workers, all the people that died, all the people that sacrificed, all the people in the wars. It's all blood money, and it doesn't belong to anybody. Nobody can say, I own that blood, I'm worth it. They have to account for it. They have to show that they're worth it. They have to demonstrate their worth. They can't just say, I inherited it. My father did the work and I'm entitled to the free ride. They wouldn't allow that in sports. They wouldn't allow that in any other contest. So there's no excuse for it. So these arguments have to be made, and they have to win. And it's disappointing that people are so stubborn in terms of not recognizing that if you want an earned society, that means you have to have an earned society. That means you can't think you earned it because you fell out of the right vagina. That's not earning anything. That's not proving you're valuable. That's not showing your utility. That's not doing the work to become skilled enough to make a contribution. That's not doing any of those things. Playing golf on your father's golf ticket, it's just, sorry, it's bullshit. And until they recognize those kind of things, these aren't people who will invest in civilization. Civilization is not made out of nepotism, statisms and all these other isms, racisms and all the rest of it. That's not what it's made out of. And you have to want it. You have to be a civilizationist, okay? Or you're not going to invest in what's going to make the difference. Okay, if we all had actual leaders in office, well, that's another thing so easy to fix. That's what the whole point of the channel's first thing to address is the fact that our politics is fundamentally broken and it's easily fixed. We don't really have a representative democracy. The same majority gets to win every election. So if we had a real representative democracy, then the 100 people in the Senate would be elected not based on where they live, not based on some state, but based on how many votes they could get based on their ideology. That means that, yes, you would literally have Klan members in the Senate. You'd literally have the silliest of the delusional, hoping, wishing, silly people thinking you can solve every problem by just taxing somebody. Yes, you'd have silly people and evil people, but they would be a real representation of the real America. And the fact is that most of the people in the Senate would be rational instead of irrational. They wouldn't be placating extremists and nonsense. They wouldn't have to be crooks. We could actually vote for honest men who said, I will pass a law. Yes, I'll vote for a law in the Senate that if I violate the people of America, if I lie and steal, you kill me. Okay, you don't just put me in jail for 6 weeks. You don't do this or that. No, you kill me. All right, because I violated something sacred. If you're going to be a public servant, then serve the public. If you're serving yourself, you should be shot. All right, and the same goes for cops and all the other people that have all this. If you want power, okay, with power comes responsibility, and most importantly, what should come with it is accountability. We should be able to inspect everything you're doing. You shouldn't have any, I'm allowed to keep my secrets and I'm allowed to, no. Screw all that crap. And those are the kind of politicians we would have an opportunity to vote for instead of this political garbage that just keeps writing excuses for their trespasses against us. They're liars and cheaters and thieves, and there should be zero tolerance for it. And I think most people would understand that yes, that's that's not asking too much. You want to be a public servant, yes, then you serve the public, or go get a different job. We'll pay you well. We'll give you lots of perks. We'll give you lots of privilege. And if that's not enough, then find another job, okay? Because that's all we're going to give you. If you're going to start being a thief, fuck you. And you should say that right to a cop's face. The minute you start breaking the law is the minute, you're done. All right. How can I personally make it easier to... So this is a different guy. How can I personally make it easier to organize a platform similar to yours? I have no idea. I don't know exactly what you mean by a platform. Obviously, it hasn't worked for me very well. So you wouldn't want to follow my path because my path hasn't worked very well. So I don't know what to tell you. Facebook. I don't know. I'm not talking about getting a website together. I can do that. So I don't know what you're talking about then. I'm autistic and I have a difficult time reaching out to people. Then maybe that's not what you should do. I just mean that all of this is a matter of constructing words together, putting arguments together, putting images together. There's so many ways to tell a story. So that's all we're trying to do is tell stories. And tell a story that's compelling to somebody and it means something to somebody. And obviously people have a very bizarre different tastes. You can tell sci-fi stories, or you can tell dopey little Rockwell painting kind of stories. You can tell religious stories. You can tell all kinds of stories. And they'll mean something to all kinds of different people. So that's all it really is, though, is just telling the story, putting the facts together and explaining how the facts point in a direction. And you can turn them into characters. You can have a little salamander and a bird, and they can have a conversation. There's so many ways you can reach out without having to reach out directly, to people, no matter how informed or polite I am. Everybody has a difficult time. I'm having a difficult time. Obviously, I have all these people attacking me in all kinds of bizarre ways, getting into my personal life, doing all kinds of things to try to, one-ups me or in some way damage me. It's a rough game. So I'm just saying, if you're a little bit, not too sure of yourself and not too confident, this isn't the kind of place, if you've never been on a boat before, this ain't the sea you want to travel in, because it can get rough. So just know what you're in for, or what you're asking for. The past week I appointed associates of mine to your site. They didn't even leave comments. Well, so again, that's more reason for you to understand I'm not a great guy to ask advice from, because obviously I'm not doing it very well. I'm applying my own reasoning skills to figuring out what the best way to approach things is. But, personality, lots of the things, events, just the way things take place. You get a reputation, you get this, you get that, and it all becomes a burden to be able to just make arguments, because of the fact that there is so many noisemakers and so many people afraid and so many people this, and, it just gets complicated. That's life. So there's just no way to fix that. I don't bother with my family. They're Trump people, and they always treat me like I'm slow or incapable. Yeah, well, that's unfortunate. Like I said, it's all, there's lots of people who are in this position of being underappreciated, being maligned, being dissed. I mean, this is a fact of life. I mean, look how many people, look at the whole racist thing, people are just so willing to sit there and blame everyone for what somebody's doing. I mean, white people are now getting blamed for, the Trumpies even. Now there's people have good reason to be very suspect of, what's going to happen when they interact with us, and vice versa. And this is a bad thing, and it's not good. And everybody ought to just grow up a little bit and take events as individual events, and certainly understand context. Understand that if a guy was a criminal in the past, it's relevant to his behavior in the present. Okay, and you know, if somebody's killed their wife before, yeah, you know, maybe you'll be a little more. You'll apply a little bit more scrutiny if his current wife ends up dead. I mean, there are things you have to do in terms of profiling and just appreciating the fact that there's all context to things. But clearly the ambition is to be fair, and fairness, it shouldn't be that elusive to people. We all, like I said, the judge a man based on the content of his character, all right, not the character of his family or the character of his, you know, the group of people that immigrated with him, or the character of, you know, what they're doing as a nation back home, or, you know, all of this abstract crap that is just being so unfair to the individual. And these are people who want to defend individualism, yet they don't even understand it, in the sense they don't understand the basic tenet of it, which is, yeah, don't blame me for what other people do. They're constantly saying how I didn't enslave anybody, it's not my responsibility. But the fact is, it happened. The fact is you imported a bunch of people, gave them no education, gave them no inheritance. They got to inherit nothing. Okay, they didn't have a family house and a family this and a family that. You know, they had nothing legacy-wise, and you had everything legacy-wise. And then you sit there and say, well, it's a fair fight. No, it wasn't a fair fight. Your expectations for what's going to happen to people are silly. You know, and the whole expectation, look, it was a bad idea to subsidize, you know, the welfare system without some sort of punishment or reward and punishment built in for reckless reproduction, because clearly all you did was feed more bad parenting. You know, bad parents had kids, they were bad parents, we had kids that are bad parents. I mean, you know, it's a bad, you know, you're feeding a system. So you have to see where there are systems that you don't want to feed. But yeah, you don't want to crucify individuals in that system. You don't want to blame every individual. You want to just make it clear these are the things you can do and these are the things you shouldn't do. And if you do these things, there's going to be a price to be paid. It can't be for nothing, because it's so dangerous. It creates such a social liability. All right. So I think that's enough for this video and such. And thank you for the comments on the point. You know, relevant, all of that stuff. Good, good. Keep it up. And such. So till the next time, and I'll try to do some work on the website and on, you know, writing some more stuff about basic platform arguments and all of that crap. But obviously I have, you know, I'm obviously spread kind of thin, because I have more than one project here in terms of all the different aspects of the human project that are being done poorly. And they all are being done poorly. Human beings aren't very good at this being a live thing. They're making a mess of it. So it's a hard enough job, and they're doing it really badly. All right, anyway, until the next time and such, so forth and whatnot.